The old man in the mansion tipped me $2 every single Thursday for 3 years straight. $2, not 10, not 20. 2. I used to think he was the cheapest rich person I had ever met. I would drive up that long gravel driveway, past the iron gates and the perfectly trimmed hedges, deliver his pizza to the front door of a house that probably cost more than I would make in 10 lifetimes. And he would hand me exact change plus 2 crumpled dollar bills like he was doing me some kind of favor. My coworkers at the pizzeria used to laugh about it. "You got the Ashford order again?" Man, that old guy tips worse than broke college kids. And I would shrug and say something like, "At least he's consistent." But deep down, it bothered me. Not because I needed the money, even though I did. It bothered me because I could not figure him out. Here was a man living alone in a 3-story colonial mansion, ordering the same medium pepperoni pizza every Thursday at exactly 7:15 in the evening, and he could not spare more than $2 for the guy who drove 15 minutes through rain and snow to bring it to him. I thought I understood wealthy people. I thought they were either generous because they could afford to be, or stingy because that is how they stayed rich. Murray Ashford did not fit either category. He was something else entirely. Something I could not name. What I did not know, what I could not have possibly known, was that those $2 were never about the money at all. They were a message, a connection. The only connection he allowed himself to have with me because he was too afraid to have more. Murray Ashford was my grandfather, my father's father, and he had been watching over me my entire life without ever saying a single word about it. I found out the truth 3 weeks after the last pizza I ever delivered to that mansion. Murray died peacefully in his sleep on a Tuesday morning. I did not even hear about it until his lawyer called me 2 days later. A man named Vincent Cray, calm voice, professional tone, asked me to come to his office downtown because Murray had left specific instructions. He said Murray wanted me to have something. I remember laughing nervously on the phone. "Are you sure you have the right person? I'm just the pizza guy." Vincent did not laugh. "Mr. Kelly, I assure you, there is no mistake. Mr. Ashford was very particular about this. Please come to my office tomorrow at noon." I showed up wearing the nicest clothes I owned, which was not saying much. A pair of dark jeans without holes and a collared shirt I had ironed that morning. The law office was everything you would expect. Polished wood, leather chairs, the smell of old books and expensive coffee. I felt like I was trespassing just by sitting there. Vincent Cray was a tall man in his 60s with reading glasses and a calm demeanor that made you feel like everything was going to be okay, even when it was not. He sat across from me, folded his hands on the desk, and slid a manila envelope toward me. "Mr. Ashford instructed me to give you this only after his death and only in person. He was very clear about that." I opened the envelope with hands that would not stop shaking. Inside were 2 things. A brass key, small and old, the kind that looked like it belonged to something important, and a folded document. I opened the document first. It was a DNA test. My name was printed on one side. On the other side was a name I had never seen before, Warren Ashford, and beneath both names in bold black letters was a single word that changed everything. Match. I stared at that word until the letters stopped making sense. Match. What did that mean? Who was Warren Ashford? Why was my name on a DNA test with a stranger? Vincent's voice broke through the fog in my head. Warren Ashford was Murray's younger son. He died in a car accident in 1999, 1 month before you were born. According to Murray, Warren was your biological father. The room tilted. I grabbed the armrest of the chair to keep from falling. My father. The man I had spent my entire life wondering about. The ghost who haunted every family tree project in elementary school, every Father's Day card I never sent, every awkward silence when someone asked about my dad. That man had a name. Warren Ashford. And he was dead before I ever took my first breath. The old man in the mansion. the one who tipped me $2 every Thursday, the one who asked me if I was staying warm, the one who looked at me a little too long every time I handed him his pizza, he knew. He knew the whole time. He knew I was his grandson, and he never said a word. I looked at the brass key in my hand, heavy, cold, full of answers I was not sure I was ready to find. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. Vincent sighed and leaned back in his chair. "That is something only Murray could answer, but he wanted you to have that key. He said you would know what to do with it when the time came." I did not know anything, not yet, but I was about to find out. My name is Damon Kelly, and I am 24 years old. I have been delivering pizzas for Lombardi's Pizzeria since I was 19, which means I have spent 5 years of my life driving through the same small streets, memorizing the same shortcuts, and knocking on the same doors in a town just outside Richmond, Virginia. It is not the life I imagined for myself when I was younger, but it is the life I have, and for the most part, I have made peace with it. Lombardi's is one of those family-owned places that has been around forever, the kind of restaurant where the walls are covered in old photographs and the owner still remembers your name. Tony Lombardi opened the place in 1974, and his daughter runs it now. They gave me a job when no one else would, back when I was a skinny 19-year-old with no experience and a chip on my shoulder the size of Texas. I owed them for that. I work the night shift, 5 days a week, sometimes 6 if we are short-staffed. The pay is not great, but the tips usually make up for it. I give most of what I earn to my mother, Lorraine. She is a nurse at the county hospital, has been for almost 20 years, and she works harder than anyone I have ever known. But nursing does not pay what it should, and the bills never stop coming. So I help where I can. That is what you do for family. My mother raised me alone. She never complained about it. Never made me feel like I was a burden, but I always knew our situation was different from other families. There was no father at the dinner table. No man teaching me how to throw a football or fix a leaky faucet. Just my mother and me against the world, figuring things out as we went. I asked about my father once when I was 7 years old. We were sitting at the kitchen table doing homework, and I looked up and said, "Mom, where is my dad?" She froze. Just for a second, but I saw it. Then she smiled, the kind of smile that does not reach your eyes, and said, "He had to go away before you were born, sweetheart. It is just us now, but that is okay. We are enough." I never asked again. Not because I did not want to know, but because I saw what the question did to her. It was like watching someone touch an old wound that never fully healed. So I buried my curiosity and told myself it did not matter. Plenty of kids grew up without fathers. I was not special. I was not broken. I was fine. But I was not fine. There was always this hollow space inside me, this question mark where my identity should have been. Half of me was a mystery, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, the mystery never went away. That is the state I was in when I started delivering to Murray Ashford's mansion. Angry without knowing why. Restless without knowing what I was searching for. Just a guy in a beat-up Honda Civic driving through the night, trying to make enough money to keep the lights on. The Ashford estate sat at the end of Wexler Road, about 15 minutes outside of town. You could not miss it. Iron gates, stone pillars, a driveway that curved through perfectly landscaped grounds before revealing a 3-story colonial mansion that looked like something out of a magazine. The kind of house that made you realize just how different some people's lives were from your own. The first time I delivered there, I was nervous. I figured anyone living in a place like that would be demanding, impatient, the type to complain if the pizza was 2 degrees below perfect. But when the door opened, I was surprised. The man standing there was not what I expected. Murray Ashford was in his late 70s, tall but slightly stooped, with silver hair and deep-set eyes that seemed to carry the weight of 100 years. He moved slowly, deliberately, like every motion required careful thought. But there was nothing frail about him. He had a presence, a quiet dignity that made you stand up a little straighter without realizing it. "Medium pepperoni?" I asked, holding up the box. He nodded and reached into his pocket. "That is the one. Thank you, son." He handed me exact change plus $2 bills. I remember thinking it was strange. A man living in a house like this, tipping $2. But his voice was warm, and he looked me in the eye when he said thank you, which was more than most customers did. So I pocketed the money and headed back to my car. That was the first Thursday. There would be hundreds more just like it. Same order, same time, same $2 tip. And every single week Murray Ashford would look at me with those heavy eyes and ask me something small. "Cold night, you staying warm out there? Busy shift tonight. You doing all right, son?" Simple questions. Nothing personal. But the way he asked them, the way he lingered at the door like he did not want me to leave, it always felt like there was something more. Something he wanted to say but could not. I told myself I was imagining it. Rich old men did not care about pizza delivery drivers. We were invisible to people like him. Just a service, a convenience, a face they forgot the moment the door closed. I had no idea how wrong I was. The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 weeks after the last pizza I ever delivered to that mansion. I was sitting on my couch, scrolling through my phone, enjoying a rare day off when an unknown number flashed across the screen. I almost let it go to voicemail. I am glad I did not. "Mr. Kelly, my name is Vincent Cray. I am an attorney representing the estate of Murray Ashford." I sat up straighter without realizing it. Murray Ashford? The guy on Wexler Road? Yes. I regret to inform you that Mr. Ashford passed away 5 days ago. He died peacefully in his sleep. I did not know what to say. I barely knew the man, but hearing that he was gone felt strange, like losing something I never knew I had. "I'm sorry to hear that," I managed. "He seemed like a good person." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Mr. Kelly, the reason I am calling is because Mr. Ashford left specific instructions regarding you. He requested that you come to my office at your earliest convenience. He left something for you." I almost laughed. "Left something for me? Sir, I think there might be some mistake. I just delivered his pizza. I didn't really know him." Vincent's voice remained steady. "There is no mistake. Mr. Ashford was very particular about this matter. Can you come to my office tomorrow at noon?" I agreed, mostly out of curiosity. What could a man like Murray Ashford possibly leave for someone like me? A thank you card, a final tip. It did not make sense, but nothing about Murray Ashford ever made sense to me. The next day, I drove downtown to a law office on Chambers Street. The building was old but elegant, the kind of place where important decisions were made behind closed doors. I found Vincent, Cray's office on the 3rd floor, and knocked twice before entering. Vincent was exactly what you would expect from a man who spent his life handling other people's affairs. Tall, composed, with reading glasses perched on his nose and a calm demeanor that put you at ease. He shook my hand firmly and gestured toward a leather chair across from his desk. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Kelly. I know this must seem unusual." "That's one word for it," I said, trying to sound relaxed even though my heart was pounding. Vincent sat down and folded his hands on the desk. "Mr. Ashford and I were friends for over 30 years. He was a private man, but a good one. In his final months, he became very focused on settling his affairs. He gave me explicit instructions about several matters, including you." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a manila envelope. He slid it across the desk toward me. "He asked me to give you this only after his death and only in person. Those were his exact words." I picked up the envelope. It was heavier than I expected. I opened it carefully and pulled out the contents. A brass key, old and worn, the kind that looked like it belonged to something from another era, and a folded document with official letterhead. I unfolded the document and read it once. Then I read it again, because my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. It was a DNA test. My name was printed on one side, Damon Kelly. On the other side was a name I had never heard before, Warren Ashford, and at the bottom, in bold letters that seemed to pulse on the page, was a single word, match. I don't understand, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Who is Warren Ashford? Vincent removed his glasses and set them on the desk. His expression softened. Warren was Murray's younger son. He died in a car accident in August of 1999, 1 month before you were born. The room started spinning. I gripped the armrest of the chair to steady myself. Are you telling me that Warren Ashford was my father? According to Murray, yes. He had this DNA test conducted several years ago using samples he obtained discreetly. He never told anyone about the results, not even his other son. My father. The man I had wondered about my entire life. The ghost who haunted every empty space in my childhood. He had a name, Warren Ashford, and he died before I ever drew my first breath. The old man who tipped me $2 every Thursday was not just some wealthy stranger. He was my grandfather. He knew who I was every single time I handed him that pizza box, and he never said a word. Why? I asked, my throat tight. Why didn't he just tell me? Before Vincent could answer, the office door burst open. A man stormed in, his face red with anger, followed by a woman with sharp features and cold eyes. I recognized the look on their faces immediately. It was the look of people who believed they owned the world and resented anyone who dared to occupy space in it. This is absurd, the man spat, glaring at me. You expect us to believe my father left something to the pizza delivery boy? This is fraud. This is a scam, and I will not stand for it. Vincent stood up calmly. Mr. Ashford, your father's instructions were clear. I am simply executing his wishes. The woman stepped closer, her eyes cutting through me like knives. We will contest every piece of this. You are not family. You are nothing. And if you think you are going to take 1 cent of what belongs to us, you are sorely mistaken. I looked at them, at the hatred burning in their eyes, and I realized something. I had not asked for any of this. I did not come here looking for money or property or a place in their family tree. I came because an old man who tipped me $2 asked me to. But now I was standing in the middle of a war I never started. I drove straight to my mother's house after leaving Vincent's office. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The DNA test sat on the passenger seat beside me, and every time I glanced at it, I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. My entire life, everything I thought I knew about myself, was built on a lie, and my mother was the one who had been telling it. I pulled into the driveway and sat in the car for a full minute, trying to gather myself. I did not want to go in there angry. I did not want to say things I could not take back, but the questions burning inside me would not wait any longer. My mother was in the kitchen when I walked in. She was still wearing her scrubs from her shift at the hospital, standing at the counter chopping vegetables for dinner. She smiled when she saw me. Damon, what a nice surprise. I wasn't expecting you today. Are you hungry? I'm making soup. I did not say anything. I just walked to the kitchen table and placed the DNA test in front of her. She looked down at it, and I watched the color drain from her face. The knife slipped from her hand and clattered against the cutting board. Where did you get this? She whispered. Murray Ashford's lawyer gave it to me. Murray died last week. He left this for me, along with a key. I pulled the brass key from my pocket and set it beside the document. He knew, Mom. He knew I was his grandson. He knew the whole time I was delivering pizza to his house, and he never said anything. But you knew too, didn't you? You knew who my father was, and you never told me. My mother sank into a chair. Her hands were trembling. Tears spilled down her cheeks, cutting tracks through the exhaustion that always seemed to live on her face. I was going to tell you, she said, her voice breaking. I told myself I would when you were older, when you were ready. But older kept becoming later, and later kept becoming never. I was scared, Damon. I was so scared. Scared of what? Of telling me the truth. Of letting me know where I came from. She looked up at me, and for the first time in my life, I saw my mother not as the strong woman who raised me alone, but as someone who had been carrying an impossible weight for 24 years. Scared of losing you, she said. Scared of what that family would do if they found out about you. She told me everything. Warren Ashford was 22 years old when they met. She was working as a waitress at a diner near the college, and he came in every morning for coffee. He was charming and reckless, and nothing like the boys she had grown up with. They fell in love fast, the way young people do when they do not know any better. They were together for 6 months. When she told Warren she was pregnant, he panicked. He said he needed time to figure things out, to talk to his family. He promised he would do right by her. 1 week later, he was dead. A car accident on Route 17. He lost control on a rainy night and hit a tree. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. I went to the funeral, my mother said. I stood in the back, and I didn't say anything to anyone. But Murray's wife saw me. She knew who I was. After the service, she pulled me aside and told me that if I ever came near her family again, she would destroy me. She said I was trash, that I had trapped her son, that I was the reason he was dead because he was upset when he got in that car. My mother wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I was 23 years old and pregnant and alone. I didn't have money for lawyers or fights, so I disappeared. I changed my name back to my maiden name. I moved to a different town. I raised you by myself, and I never looked back. But Murray knew, I said. He found out about me somehow. She nodded. A few years ago, I got a letter. There was no return address. It just said, I know about the boy. I am sorry for everything. I will make it right. I never responded. I didn't know what to do. I thought maybe if I ignored it, it would go away. I sat down across from her. The anger I had felt driving over was fading, replaced by something heavier, sadness, understanding. The realization that my mother had not kept this secret to hurt me. She had kept it to protect me from people who wanted to pretend I did not exist, but I could not pretend anymore. Murray Ashford had spent the last 3 years of his life ordering pizza just to see my face. He had watched me grow up from a distance, collecting photographs and report cards and memories of a grandson he was too afraid to claim. And before he died, he left me a key to something he wanted me to find. I have to know, I said quietly. I have to know why he never told me himself. I have to know what this key opens. My mother reached across the table and took my hand. I know you do, and I'm not going to stop you. Just promise me you'll be careful. Those people, the Ashfords, they don't see you as family. They see you as a threat. I thought about Hank and Tessa, the hatred in their eyes, the venom in their voices. My mother was right. They would fight me every step of the way. But I did not care anymore. I had spent my whole life without answers. Now I had a key, and I was going to find out what it unlocked. Vincent Cray gave me the address the next morning, a storage facility called Grayson Secure Holdings, about 20 minutes outside of town on a stretch of road I had never driven before. He told me Murray had rented Unit 14B for over 15 years and had paid for it in cash every single year. No one else knew about it. Not Hank, not Tessa, not even Murray's late wife. It was his secret, and now it was mine. I arrived at the facility just after 10 in the morning. The place was old but clean. Rows of metal units lined up like soldiers behind a chain-link fence. A bored attendant in the front office barely looked up when I signed in. I walked down the gravel path until I found it. Unit 14B, a rusted metal door with a heavy padlock hanging from the latch. I pulled the brass key from my pocket. My hands were steady now. Whatever was behind this door, whatever Murray wanted me to find, I was ready for it. I slid the key into the lock and turned it. The mechanism clicked, and the padlock fell open. I rolled the door up slowly. Sunlight spilled into the darkness, revealing a small room filled with carefully stacked boxes and a single wooden desk pushed against the far wall. On top of the desk sat a sealed envelope with my name written across the front in shaky handwriting. I walked to the desk and picked up the envelope. It was thick, heavier than a normal letter. I tore it open and pulled out 6 pages of handwritten text. The paper was expensive, the kind you buy when you want something to last. I leaned against the desk and began to read. Dear Damon, if you are reading this, then I am gone, and I am sorry. I am sorry. I was never brave enough to tell you the truth while I was still alive. I am sorry I let fear and shame keep me from being the grandfather you deserved. I have made many mistakes in my life, but my silence with you is the one I regret most of all. Your father was my son Warren. He was wild and impulsive, the kind of young man who lived like tomorrow was never coming. But he had a good heart. He loved your mother. I know he did because he told me so the night before he died. He came to my study and said he had gotten a girl pregnant, a waitress named Lorraine, and that he was going to marry her. He said he was done running from responsibility. He was going to be a father, and he was going to do it right. I told him I was proud of him. Those were the last words I ever spoke to my son. The accident happened the next night. Warren lost control of his car on Route 17. The police said he died on impact. He never suffered. But I have suffered every day since, wondering what kind of man he would have become, what kind of father he would have been to you. My wife, Eleanor, could not accept what happened. She blamed your mother. She said Lorraine had trapped Warren, distracted him, caused the accident with her news. It was not true, but grief makes people believe terrible things. Eleanor made me choose. Either I cut all ties with your mother and pretend you did not exist, or she would leave me and take everything with her. I was a coward, Damon. I chose my marriage. I chose silence. I told myself it was the right thing to do, that you would be better off without the Ashford name hanging over you. But that was a lie I told myself so I could sleep at night. I never stopped watching you. I hired a private investigator to send me updates every year. I have photographs of you from every stage of your life. Your first day of school, your 8th grade science fair, your high school graduation. I watched you grow into a man from a distance, and every photograph made me proud and broke my heart at the same time. When you started delivering pizzas to my house, I thought God was giving me a second chance. I could not tell you the truth. I was too afraid of what it would do to you, to your mother, to the fragile peace I had built with my other son. But I could see you. I could hear your voice. I could ask you how you were doing and pretend, just for a moment, that I was part of your life. The $2 I tipped you every week was never about the money. In 1974, a cup of coffee cost $2 at the diner where I took your grandmother on our first date. It was my way of honoring her memory, my way of saying I remembered, my way of connecting to you without having the courage to say the words out loud. I stopped reading. My vision was blurred with tears. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and kept going. In these boxes, you will find everything. Documentation proving you are Warren's biological son. A trust fund I established in your name 12 years ago, funded through accounts no one else knows about. The current value is over $600,000. There is also the deed to a cabin on Lake Monroe. It belonged to my father and his father before him. It was always meant to stay in the family. Now, it belongs to you. I know this does not make up for 24 years of silence. I know I cannot buy your forgiveness with money or property. But I hope this gives you a future. I hope it gives you choices I never gave myself. You are an Ashford, Damon. You always were. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. With all the love I should have shown you sooner, Murray. I set the letter down and looked at the boxes stacked around me. I opened them one by one. Photographs of me as a child, taken from a distance by someone I never noticed. report cards with handwritten notes in the margins, newspaper clippings, legal documents, a trust fund statement with my name on it, the deed to a cabin I had never seen. I sank to the cold concrete floor and let myself cry. Not for the money, not for the property, but for the old man who loved me in secret, who watched me grow up through photographs and Thursday night pizza orders, who spent his final years trying to make things right. He was my grandfather, and even though he never said it out loud, he loved me. The legal battle lasted 4 months. Hank and Tessa Ashford contested everything. They claimed I had manipulated Murray in his final years. They said I was a con artist who had targeted a vulnerable old man. They hired expensive lawyers and filed motion after motion, trying to bury me under paperwork and legal fees I could not afford. But Vincent Cray was prepared. Murray had spent years building a case that no one could tear apart. Vincent produced decades of documentation, bank statements showing payments to private investigators, photographs with dates stamped on the back, Murray's personal journals filled with entries about me, about his guilt, about his hope that one day he would find the courage to tell me the truth. The DNA test was just the final piece of a puzzle Murray had been assembling for over 2 decades. The judge dismissed the case in less than an hour. He looked at Hank and Tessa with something close to disgust and told them that Murray Ashford had every right to distribute his estate as he saw fit. I was recognized as Murray's legitimate grandson. The trust fund was mine. The cabin was mine, and there was nothing they could do about it. Outside the courthouse, Hank found me on the steps. His face was red, his jaw tight with barely contained rage. He grabbed my arm and pulled me close. "You think you won something here? You think this makes you one of us? You're still just a delivery boy. You're still nothing." I looked at him for a long moment. I thought about all the things I could say, all the insults I could throw back. But then I remembered something from Murray's journals, an entry from 3 years ago that Vincent had shown me during the trial. Hank called today, first time in 8 months. He wanted money for a new boat. Did not ask how I was feeling. Did not ask about my health, just money. I wonder sometimes if he ever loved me at all, or if I was only ever a bank account to him. I pulled my arm free from Hank's grip and stepped back. "Your father wrote about you," I said calmly. "He wrote about how alone he felt, how you never visited, how you only called when you needed something. I showed up every Thursday for 3 years. I didn't know he was my grandfather, but I showed up. I handed him his pizza and asked him how he was doing. I looked him in the eye and treated him like a human being. That's the difference between us. I was there. You weren't." Hank had no response. He stood there with his mouth open, searching for words that would not come. His wife tugged at his sleeve, and they walked away without looking back. I never saw them again. 2 weeks later, I brought my mother to the cabin on Lake Monroe. It was smaller than I expected, a modest 2-bedroom house with a wraparound porch and a view of the water that made you forget the rest of the world existed. The inside smelled like cedar and old books. There were photographs on the walls of people I did not recognize, generations of Ashfords who had stood on this same porch and watched the same sunsets. My mother stood at the railing, looking out at the lake. Tears streamed down her face, but she was smiling. "I never thought I'd see this place," she said. "Warren used to talk about it. He said he wanted to bring me here someday. He said it was the most peaceful place on earth." I put my arm around her. "Now it's ours. A place that belongs to us." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I'm sorry I kept the truth from you for so long. I thought I was protecting you. I didn't realize I was just delaying the inevitable." "You did the best you could," I said. "That's all any of us can do." I went back to Lombardi's Pizzeria one last time. Not to quit with anger or resentment, but to say thank you. Tony's daughter, Maria, had given me a job when I was 19 years old and desperate. She had trusted me when no one else would. I owed her more than I could ever repay. I told her I was going back to school. veterinary science. The same field Murray had dedicated his life to. It felt right, like I was carrying on something he had started. Maria hugged me and told me she always knew I was meant for bigger things. I promised to come back and visit. I meant it. The trust fund gave me options I never had before. I paid off my mother's medical bills. I bought her a new car to replace the one that had been breaking down for years. I enrolled in classes at the state university and started building a future I had never dared to imagine. But the money was never the point. The cabin was never the point. What mattered was knowing where I came from. What mattered was understanding that my father had loved my mother, that he had wanted to be part of my life, that he had died trying to become the man he knew he needed to be. What mattered was knowing that my grandfather had watched over me from a distance, that he had loved me in the only way he knew how, that his $2 tips were never about the money at all. I used to think family was about blood. Now I know it is about showing up. It is about the small things. A question asked on a rainy night. A letter written for someone you may never meet. A brass key left behind to unlock the truth. Murray Ashford was my grandfather. He never said the words out loud, but he loved me. And that love, quiet and hidden and imperfect as it was, changed everything. I hung a framed photograph in the cabin above the fireplace. It was a picture of Murray from one of the boxes, standing on this same porch decades earlier, smiling at the camera like he had all the time in the world. Beneath it, I mounted the brass key on a small wooden plaque, the key that unlocked everything. Some people spend their whole lives searching for where they belong. I found my answer in a storage unit, in a stack of old photographs, in the handwriting of a man who was too afraid to speak but brave enough to write. I am Damon Kelly. I am an Ashford, and I am finally home. If this story touched your heart, do me a favor. Hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have done if you found out a secret like this about your family. And if you're not subscribed yet, go ahead and click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. I read every single comment, and I love hearing from you. Thank you for watching, thank you for being here, and I will see you in the next one.